Coming up on CHGO Cubs, presented by Toyota, PCA Power, Tucker Tanks, and Horton Heat. Plus, where does Dansby fit into this new look Cubs lineup? It feels like summertime shy. CHGO Cubs next. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast presented by Toyota. It is Monday, March 10th. It is sunny out. I think it's 65 degrees. This is the closest thing to summer as you're going to get for a little while. Cody brought it all the way back from Arizona. He's back with a tan. In case you're wondering, he is wearing shorts.
I am wearing shorts, yes.
The return of shorts.
I regret to inform that I did not ride the e-bike to work today because I was so exhausted from the travel back that I didn't get out of bed until an hour before I had to be here.
Flight delays.
So I got in at 3 a.m. I walked into my apartment at 3:15 a.m. this morning. So fun travels.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. A 4-day trip out to Arizona. You got to see rain and 40 degrees for a little while.
I learned that it hadn't rained like all day like that in a year.
Yeah.
So the odds, what are the odds that would happen? First off,
Cody brings the rain is what we're talking about.
People are saying that I made it rain in Arizona.
They call you the Rainmaker every time you make a bet. They call him the Rainmaker. That's his middle name.
They're saying that, Kyle Tucker waited to get a hit when I arrived. Like,
all of it.
People are saying, I didn't say it. People are saying, okay?
We're not excited just because the weather is finally nice today in Chicago. We're also excited because it's the free agent frenzy deal going on, the diehard limited time deal going on right now all week long. $36 for the first year to be a diehard. That includes all the perks of being a diehard, including the diehard card, access to all of our written content, the Discord, which is available to you, the 20% off events and merch. And we have so many great pieces of new merch out there right now, and even some St. Patty's Days things coming out soon. But, with the draft, a lot of people jumping on board with the Bears stuff. But let's face it, still the most exciting team in town. Probably the Chicago Cubs.
Absolutely.
Probably still the Chicago Cubs. You waited for it. You waited for Kyle Tucker. Before we get, I want to hear about the feels you had because you were hoping he was going to be bad all spring. The first thing
he's hitting 0.48.
So he's still bad.
He's still having a terrible spring.
Okay. I did want to ask before we even get started, how was the Waymo?
Okay.
Oh yeah, had to be good, right? I could see it on his face. He's been in the future and back.
I was planning to ride it to Glendale, but unfortunately Waymo doesn't go to Glendale. It's only in a certain area.
They go everywhere, Cody. Don't mention that.
Well, I'm just saying, like I wanted to,
Gotcha.
I wanted to take it, but it's in his own particular zone in Phoenix. It goes all over the place in Phoenix.
Did you see people doing it?
I did.
Oh yeah,
Waymo a good friend of the program, Bo Thompson, the $1 million card guy. Which, by the way, I saw him yesterday. He was wearing the card that Topps sent him.
He's got it plated in gold now. He just wears it around his neck like a giant medallion.
Yeah. Anyway,
congratulations, by the way.
He rode in a Waymo yesterday on the way to his fantasy baseball draft.
Yeah.
I saw him post that on Facebook, and I'm telling you, like, I did see them, and it is everything that we talk about it when we do them. It's incredible technology.
If you're going to walk around with a gold-plated baseball card hanging from your neck, you better have an autonomous ride.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
But
you better have a completely automated ride.
The reason that I did not take a Waymo was because I walked everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. That's the...
You were getting your steps in.
Yeah. Now...
Getting your spring steps.
I regret not getting a Waymo from the airport to the hotel or the hotel from the airport. But it wasn't very far, whatever.
I'd have been taking Waymo to the convenience store and back. If it was a half a block, I'd have been Waymoing everywhere. Waymo.
Just get the mail.
Waymo
to the mail.
Yeah.
They were popular.
I don't get mail on the road, but if I did.
I saw them everywhere. They are popular, and they are like what we're saying. Like it's actually incredible technology. Yes.
I'm pretty convinced that my kids may never drive a car. I think that's possible. You're talking about like 16 years from now. Is there a chance they won't? They may. Kids today, I have neighbors the kids are in high school. They don't even want their driver's license right away. They prefer to just, Waymo it and whatever when they go on the road. Anyways, I digress.
Can I give some shout outs though?
Tell me what happened. Give us the highlights of the trip.
Okay, highlights. The flight there and the flight home, they weren't the highlights of the trip, but they were incredibly interesting. And I will never forget them. Most of us forget about the flight to a place and unfortunately remember the flight home because we're tired and we're exhausted and we want to just be in our beds or whatever, back into our routine. I met, his name is Adam and Mark, I believe. Adam for sure. I'm pretty sure Mark is his other friend's name. I met them on the flight to Arizona. Adam's a follower of CHGO.
Nice.
And
thank you. Hope he's a diehard.
I'm not sure if he's a diehard. I didn't ask.
He should be now because it's only $36.
Should be. But we had an incredible conversation about the Cubs on this 2.5-hour flight to Arizona. Used to be a season ticket holder for the Cubs, not anymore because he's like Godfather and wants them to spend more money. And I can't blame him for not being a season ticket holder for that reason. Anyway, so I just want to give those guys a shout out because I told them I would, and I appreciate their support of this program. On the way back, interesting, met an employee of the White Sox.
Okay. Let's just call them Person X.
Person X, yes. We'll just say that. And we spent a lot of time talking about how both organizations operate, on the internal.
Oh, was it Chris Getz?
It was not Chris Getz.
Okay.
It was not Chris Getz. I would have known it was Chris Getz, but it was not Chris Getz.
A current employee. Yeah. So it wasn't Jason Benetti. Okay, got it.
It wasn't Jason Benetti. Yeah.
Steve Stone?
No.
Okay, just making sure.
We would have talked Cubs the entire
Person
time.
X. Let's just go with Person X.
But I think the conversation about how both organizations operate in terms of how they get people to come to the ballpark is different. Was a lot different, and I found it very interesting. And I think there's a lot of things the Cubs could take away from the White Sox to improve on getting more people to come to the park for more reasons than just Wrigley being Wrigley.
I heard today on the radio on the way in that, this is the difference. We're talking about all of the stuff going on with Tucker and PCA and who they should have signed and who's going to make the team, and the roster moves actually start to hurt and make feels a little bit. The White Sox today were teasing to their audience that the Campfire Milkshake will have a companion of some sorts this season. So I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but it did get me thinking, where are they going? Are they going banana milkshake? Are they going strawberry milkshake? What goes with a milkshake that could be a companion? All intriguing storylines on the South Side right now.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it was just a really interesting conversation, and I'll just say that the one thing that the White Sox do that I wish the Cubs would do more is maybe embrace people like me and Luke a little bit. That's all I'll say, because the White Sox do embrace people that are like me and Luke. I guess, and I'm not saying about...
By that, we mean old white guys. No,
that's not what I mean.
Oh,
I'm not even talking about credentials. I'm talking about...
That's right.
I'm talking about things that they could do at Cubs convention. They did it that the Sox have done at Sox Fest for people fans like me and Luke. They could embrace us a little more. Let us do some panels perhaps at Cubs convention. Not necessarily
turn over a few off-season moves to us. One off-season move.
I'm talking about let us maybe sit up in one of the panels and talk with the players
regular people to regular people.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Just little small things that I'm like, oh, yeah.
Interesting.
I think that the White Sox embrace a lot of the creators out there, and the Cubs could really care less about me and you.
Well, that might not be true.
That's just how I feel. But
they probably could care less about our podcast today.
Probably.
Yeah. Kyle Tucker, so he finally hits a home run. And you're happy about it, or were you happy to see his first?
I was just happy to see him finally have some success that, honestly, he probably should have had a week and a half ago, because he had hit plenty. And it's like triggers my PTSD in a way, because he hit a lot of long flyouts to the warning track, and we saw plenty of that last year.
A lot.
He hit an absolute nuke yesterday. And his first at bat, he also took to the warning track. So he was seeing the ball well yesterday. I love that you're taking the ball up the middle to the opposite field. He's got the opposite field power that he's shown so far, even though obviously all of them have been shown for outs. It's like you can see how good this guy is. And that home run he hit yesterday showed, like, the way that ball came off the bat just flew out of here in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, it was
the
launched.
way that it did. It was a nuke, and it's been more of a joke for me, because I know there are plenty of fans out there that were worried about Kyle Tucker because he didn't have a hit, even though he had even though, in my opinion, just really doesn't matter about these results, especially from a guy like him who's been there, done that, shown multiple years of being a really good baseball player. And what I mean by really good, I should just say a star player in this game. It was good to see, as a fan, it was good to see him get that monkey off his back. The players gave him the silent treatment in the dugout. And I think from fan standpoint, it was cool to finally see the big offseason acquisition do something.
Yeah.
And I think from that standpoint, it was awesome. And listen, this guy's going to be a big part of the Cubs winning this year. That's just plain and simple. If they don't make the playoffs, Kyle Tucker was either hurt for half the season like he was last year, or he had a down year, or just a very long laundry list of things went wrong. If they don't make the playoffs, I think it would be it would start with those three.
That would be a key to it.
Yeah.
I would say this. It was nice to see him finally get a big hit and see what that looks like, him running around the bases in a Cubs uniform. For me, I know it shouldn't matter because it's spring training, but I am starting to get a little tingly. I am starting to get a little bit of the goosebumps now when PCA comes to the plate. Because if you can add in a little bit of power into that player, if he can start to show us some of the power, I'm not asking for a 40 home run a year guy, but he hits the grand slam and you're like, that speed, that defense, throw a little power in the mix there. Now you're talking about the type of player every single team would love to have. I saw somebody in the live YouTube chat saying the Cubs won't be for real until he starts batting leadoff. That might be the case, but it still doesn't sound like it's going to be this year.
Are we talking about PCA?
PCA. Craig Counsell has said it's not going to happen.
Well, it's not going to happen on opening day.
Mike Taylor said it. Well, he basically said at Cubs convention, don't expect to see it this year because we want to have him develop into the player he can be and have him build that base before we start throwing crazy things in. I also think they have enough guys that they could try at leadoff before they need to go that route.
Yeah, it's not like an absolute big hole in this roster. Ian Happ was awesome out of the leadoff role last year. And Nico Horner's shown to do it in the past too. Now, personally, would I go with PCA after Ian Happ? Yes, I personally would if he's going to hit like he has this spring. But he's got to prove it when the games matter. And so far, in the spring at least, he's raising eyebrows because when you have a slugging or a OPS over 1,500, you can't just take that with a grain of salt. You have to at least acknowledge, this guy's doing stuff.
Leading the Cactus League with hits. All right, so we're going to talk about Dansby, where he fits in just a second. We're also going to talk about Cade Horton in a moment. But first, a word from our great sponsors. No matter what outdoor activities you prefer, it's always important to have the best view. Right On Optics offers a full range of optics products so you can see clearly. Everybody can use a good pair of binoculars. Better views of your kid's sporting event. Cody was using his to spot birds and other wildlife on his Arizona adventure. Bring to the stadium, maybe, if you're stuck in those cheap seats. I've been there before. Right On offers higher performance at a lower price. The perfect balance of performance and value. It won't break the bank. Right On Optics has been around for over a decade. Every product receives a full quality control inspection. The Right On Promise unlimited lifetime warranty not only covers defects, but also accidental damage like drops. Because guys like me, I have the dropsies occasionally. Quality products you know you can trust. So check out the full line of Right On products today at Righton, RITON, optics.com/CHGO. That's RITON, optics.com/CHGO. It doesn't feel like it today, but it is still technically winter unless you're a meteorologist. Got a couple days left. The winter in Chicago can be absolutely brutal. It'll still get cold again. The weather will still be nasty again, and Toyota helps make it easier. Toyota's got 25 vehicles with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, more than any other auto brand out there. From the sleek Camry all-wheel drive to the Corolla hybrid all-wheel drive. How about the Toyota Tundra? That's a truck known for its power, durability, and off-road conditions, perfect for Chicago's winters. Maybe you're headed to the big game. Maybe you're taking your kids on a spring break. Pack them all into the Grand Highlander, the perfect ride with all-wheel drive to keep you and yours safe. So bring the action, and Toyota will bring the traction. Toyota, let's go places. I mentioned at the top of the show, but I want to reiterate this. This is the time to be a diehard.
Especially at the price.
Free agent frenzy right now because free agency started and the Bears have gotten busy and they're fortifying that big offensive line. You can fortify your fandom in Chicago. Are you a diehard? Yes or no? Become a CHGO diehard. Upgrade your fandom today. Get access to our exclusive written content, the Discord lounge, all the great perks that come with it. Go to allchgo.com for the latest information on how you can join thousands of CHGO diehards in our community. We affectionately call them sickos as well.
Sickos.
We can't wait to connect with you on an even greater level, I should say.
Speaking of
sickos and diehards.
Speaking of diehards, did meet a guy named Gene at spring training yesterday, who apparently has actually came to some of our, or one of our Friday 120s. And unfortunately, and I like said this to him yesterday, like, I am very sorry. I do not remember you. And but we still connected with Gene in a very intimate level. Well, and he said that he's going to be at Friday 120 Club opening day.
Well, I'm glad
he's going to be in the left field bleachers with me and hopefully Braggs when his leg heals. So,
what a trooper working today.
Shout out to Gene, who's wearing a obvious shirt said Cubs fan on it. Like, yeah, looks like it.
Gene.
But he's a big supporter of us. He's been around since.
And Gene's a diehard?
I think he is.
Well, Gene, if you're not a diehard, please.
Yeah. But
this is the day, $36.
He's been listening since Corey and Brendan before, like,
very nice.
Like before we existed. So he's been a
before
fan.
we were born.
Yes, before we were CHGO Cubs. Yes, so he's been a longtime listener of many guys on this this podcast. So I just want to give him a shout out and looking forward to see him at opening day against the Padres. Yeah,
very nice. So we were talking a little bit about the tater from Tucker. We talked about PCA's power. And what we haven't mentioned is Cade Horton in relief. And it was a chance for him to get out there. Yes, he gave up a home run, but he also got the save, I believe, on Saturday. We have sound from Craig Counsell via Marquis' Twitter page just talking about that moment, what it means, because he was then later sent back to camp. He won't be going to Tokyo, but this was Craig Counsell about the moment for Cade Horton.
It was a big day for Cade. Just like a little bit of almost a milestone and symbolic just to be out on the stadium with a big crowd. Like a necessary step for him. So I'm happy for him. And now it's kind of talking to him this morning, just like now it's, taking steps forward and just, a lot of it's going to happen on the other side and just keeping that same focus and build up. And then, at some point in the season, like, we got to call Cade Horton up. That's kind of how you want it to feel. And that's his job.
I love that. Like, that is how I want to feel when Horton. I want to see Horton putting up stats that are so incredible that you're like, I don't care who's on this team right now. You have to make room for this guy. He's that electric that we have to have him on the team. I hope it's not just because somebody is injured. But I also don't care, honestly, personally, I don't care about which role it is. I don't care if they try to ease him in and make him a bullpen guy early on, or I don't care if they try to make him a starter right when he comes in, or both.
Yeah.
He could have the Ben Brown role that he had last year.
It'll be really interesting to see how they use Cade Horton this year. Now, obviously, in the minors, he will be a starter, but I'm talking about once he debuts. And I think if he's healthy, man, like, this guy could be the first one up. Because I think we all think Shaw is going to be here. But after that, after Shaw, I guess, I think Horton is the most likely to get promoted next. And, yeah, he could be a real difference maker. And, a lot of people kind of forgot about him this offseason because he was hurt from June to the end of the year. But the year before, his minor league season, going from high A all the way up to triple A in the summer of 23, like, it was like, okay, this might be a dude, and as we've talked about for a long time, the Cubs haven't necessarily been elite at developing pitching, and I think they've had some big wins over the last 5 years, Justin Steele being the biggest one, right? We have a lot of hope and optimism about Ben Brown. He's shown success. We've seen success from Porter Hodge and Luke Little, and then some other names too that I'm probably blanking on. But Cade Horton he's your first round pick from that draft 2-3 years ago, and like, they need the hope and also the need is for him. Not just this year, but moving forward, he's got to be some guy for them. He's got to be able to do something. He can't be a miss because you've traded away Cam Smith now. You've traded away Jackson Ferris. Maybe I should say so more so because they traded Jackson Ferris. Because remember, they were both in the same draft. They took Horton, then they took Jackson Ferris.
Both players that they gave up for Bush,
right?
You could end up regretting a little bit.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Or a lot.
Zaire Hope for sure. The prospect ranking, whatever. But Cade Horton, they believed in Cade Horton, and I think they kept Cade Horton more so than Jackson Ferris because he was closer to being ready. And so, yeah, most people think he's like a high upside number 2 starter. Maybe he can be a 1. I don't know. But I think for this year, I'm curious. My biggest questions are, how many innings is he going to pitch, and can he stay healthy? Because he had Tommy John in college. He's had some injury stuff in the minors with the Cubs these last couple years. And listen, every pitcher, it feels like these days, is getting hurt. So it's like, it's inevitable. But if this guy wants to stay in the majors, once he gets there, he's got to be healthy and he's got to be effective. Those are the two things. So I think probably somewhere in that role of Jordan Wicks, Ben Brown, that's probably what he will be in, I guess, more so as a starter. I would be really surprised if they use him as a reliever, unless they really have an innings limit.
Right, unless that ends up being a fit because the starters are rolling along and you don't need that other than maybe a spot start. Anyways.
That's fair.
I'm looking forward to seeing him at Wrigley Field this year as we will a few other players we'll talk about in just a little bit. By the way, Brad Keller, 2 more solid innings.
Did he go scoreless?
I believe he was scoreless on Sunday, so that's another good one. All right, Dansby Swanson, right? Like, we've talked a lot about Dansby Swanson, and we will here in a second. And I know we got a break coming up in a little while, but Dansby Swanson is, to me, I think there's a possibility. I was sitting around yesterday, I thought to myself, have we talked about Dansby Swanson much this offseason? His name gets brought up.
The highest paid player on the Cubs?
It's usually negative if you're reading the chat, but like, he's healthy.
We've talked about his health.
I saw him at Cubs convention, right? He was there walking around, and he's talked about Tucker coming to the team. But I'm starting to wonder if we're sleeping a little bit on Dansby Swanson. And I know what people are going to say. Not worth the money. Doesn't hit enough for this. We've made a statement on this that I believe we both stand by, Cody. Don't be mad at Dansby Swanson for not being a top 2 hitter on your team. He's not going to carry your offense. That's not the guy they signed. They knew that when they got him. They got the best defensive shortstop at a very affordable deal compared to the other guys that signed. That doesn't mean he was the best shortstop. They took the best defensive shortstop who would come to them and a guy who's at least average to above average as a hitter. He's not the explosive offensive player that some of the other guys are. So what I want to do is look at the projections and see could we be taking a step. I feel like if it weren't for, we don't know what to make out of last year because of the injury. He had off-season surgery, but he also had a knee problem, and he had all kinds of nagging things, and we don't know how much playing through it may or may not have impacted it. By the way, that was his decision. I understand that. But the projection so far from Zips looks like everything should be up at least a little bit.
You did do Zips this time?
This is Zips. So he goes from a 242 to 245. Who cares? He hits 2 more homers. Okay, great. His RBI go up by 4. His WRC plus goes up by 3. The F4 actually goes down just because they're predicting that the defensive numbers may not be as spectacular as they were last season. Let me tell you, if the thing that you're thinking might come down on Dansby Swanson is potentially a slight regression in defense, you're going to be happy about this season.
Yeah. We also have to remember that projections, they're always conservative. Mm-hmm. So those are the same. They're projecting him to have the same season basically as last season, and he was hurt the entire year. He's healthy right now. When you ask, are we sleeping a little bit on Dansby Swanson, I guess, are we sleeping on his offensive potential in year 3? Perhaps, because this is the best lineup he will be in, and he's not going to hit anywhere in the top 3 of the lineup, at least on a consistent basis. Now, as we've learned, he goes through hot streaks. He can be a streaky hitter. So, yeah, if he's hitting well, I could see him somewhere in that top 3 if he's hitting well. But I think majority of the season, we're going to see him hitting somewhere between the 6 and the 9 hole. And I would lean somewhere in that 6 or 7 hole, right? So, when you talk about his projections or whatever, those are fine, but I also feel like they're really conservative based off if this guy's healthy, he can give you the same season he gave you in 2023, which was nearly a 5-win season.
Exactly what I'm talking about. What's the number that we have said in the lineup when we and the moments where the heat really comes at Dansby Swanson about his offense? And don't get me wrong, it's not like I haven't been frustrated with Dansby Swanson at some point at the plate during the last couple seasons. But we've always said 6, right? Is that the magic number we said? He's maybe the 6th best offensive player on your team. He's probably the number 1 defensive player on your team. Mm-hmm. Or you hope he is. He's always going to give you that elite defense at short. But we've always said if Dansby slots in as like your 6th best offensive player or in the 6th spot in the lineup even, then that's the guy that you signed and we're hoping for. So I said, all right, let's do a little exercise. Where is he right now? If you're saying, this is who I want to come up right now. The Cubs need to win the game. This is who I want at the plate. Number 1, Kyle Tucker, right? Mm-hmm. Number 2, probably Seiya. Number 3, I would say it's Ian Happ just based on consistency. Now, it's not Ian Happ if he's in the middle of one of his massive slumps, but if you're just talking about an even stretch, he's probably up there close with being your 3rd best offensive player. Now we have to determine where the next 3 start to come in, and we'll do that in just a second, right after a word from our sponsors, which, Cody, we're very thankful for.
Game Time. I got to go to the games last week because of Game Time. Shout out to Game Time for sending me to Sloan Park, in which, by the way, there's no real bad seat in that place. And if you're like me, you don't even really sit. You just kind of walk around because it's spring training. And me personally, I really don't care about a lot of the results that's happening.
Of the people.
I'll stop and watch Kyle Tucker take at bats or PCA the way he's been hitting. Matt Shaw since he's been getting back in the lineup. So in my personal opinion, using Game Time to go to Sloan Park this spring is a massive win because you can just get the cheapest ticket and then just kind of mosey on around, because I also sat in a bunch of seats that I didn't actually pay for.
Right. And Cody, some people like to kiss babies and shake hands. Cody likes to sign babies and kiss hands.
Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. Anyway, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. Did you hear that they broke a record on Saturday?
No.
For the number of fans at Sloan Park? Like 16,000 plus were at Sloan Park on Saturday.
I mean,
I'm
there
hurting.
are teams that don't get that in the regular season.
I know. I'm hurting
lot.
I'm hurting Godfather's ears right now by saying it. But, I mean, it was packed at Sloan Park on Saturday, and it was also packed on Sunday.
Breaking even.
We can confirm the Cubs have more diehards and sickos than any other team.
You're absolutely right. All right. And like I said, you can sit anywhere in this place, and I think you have a good seat. They have... Like I said, they have Game Time Picks. They have the all-in pricing, which is when you toggle that feature, it shows a total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Luke, I know you hate a bait and switch. I, too, hate a bait and switch. Game Time gives you the option to see everything up front, which is nice, all right? They give you a panoramic view from your seat and in the app before you buy, if you do care where you're sitting. And they have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry with Game Time ticket coverage. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Get ready for the spring and summertime shy with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by more than 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. Hundreds of options to choose from. You're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. I wear them driving. I wear them fishing. I wear them golfing. Can't find all those errant tee shots in the rough or on the next fairway without my Shady Rays polarized sunglasses. Plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. If you don't love your shades, don't worry. Exchange for a new pair or return them worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code CHGO for 35% off your polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by more than 300,000 people. So we're talking about Dansby Swanson. And by the way, I saw we have another new diehard on there. Just came through. Somebody just told us they're a diehard.
I saw
Kyle Gibson just became a diehard.
Let's
just
go,
happened.
Kyle.
And somebody else has been a diehard for 3 years, I saw in the live YouTube chat.
Yeah, Elliot.
Yeah, shout out Zobi Wan. Yeah.
Zobi Wan, Elliot. Very nice. So we're talking about...
He got his Friday 120 shirt.
Oh, very nice. Dansby Swanson, where does he fit? Are we underestimating what he could mean to this team now that the roster and the lineup are starting to beef up a little bit? Mm-hmm. He was never the savior of the offense. That's not why they signed him. But could he be your sixth? Could he be very valuable as the great defensive shortstop and maybe the 6th best offensive player or 6th in the lineup? So we've got right off the top, Tucker, Seiya, Happ for me. Where do you go with the rest of the list? I think it's more and more likely that Dansby is sliding down to now 5 or 6 in the roster because let's say Michael Busch is a 25, 30 home run guy this year.
His spring is showing it.
If his spring shows you anything, then maybe Michael Busch could creep up to 4. It's possible PCA could creep up to 4 or 5. It's very, in my eyes, if you're just talking about pure hitter, and I know it's only for, now, but like Justin Turner's probably in your top 5 ahead of Dansby Swanson. I think he's going to get enough at bats that you're going to say, hey, the Cubs need a base hit here. This is who I want up. Justin Turner's probably in that top 5. He may not be in the everyday lineup, but I think he's going to play enough that you would say Dansby could slide down to number 6 now.
Yeah.
Anybody else on that list? Because we're not even talking about Nico or Amaya or anybody else that could potentially have a breakout season.
I mean, Amaya has been hitting well this spring. He hit another homer on Saturday, and I think if Amaya hits like he did from July to the end of the year, if he can do that for a full season, we might be sitting here saying he is a more crafted hitter than Dansby Swanson. And it would be considered a breakout year for him. But
I just think a healthy Dansby, okay, has a really good chance of being, even a healthy Dansby, could end up being behind at least two of those other players, Bush, PCA, Turner, Nico, and Amaya. And if it does, it's what was just being talked about in the chat. If you can slide him down and PCA and Dansby become weapons at the bottom half of your lineup, which was weak last year, now you're lengthening a lineup and you're making teams start to fear your offense.
Yeah.
You can't just have three guys at the top. Well, I want Dansby to be one of those key pieces at the bottom half of that lineup.
So I'm looking at Dansby Swanson's, just his Fangraphs page, just looking at season by season, and even going back to when he was with the Braves, right? Last season, Dansby Swanson had a 99 WRC+. The last time he had a 99 WRC+ was with the Braves in 2021, which they won the World Series that year, right? And then the next season in 2022, he had a 117 WRC+, which was a career high for him, and it was one of his best offensive seasons of his career. That's not even that was the year going into free agency. That's how he ended up getting the big contract, right? So I think the point I'm getting at here is when you look at that Braves team in 2021, I think going back, no one thought they were going to win the World Series that year. They made those huge trade deadline acquisitions, Jock Peterson from the Cubs and Jorge Soler and this and that. That obviously moved him down in their lineup. And we talk about it all the time. The year they won the World Series, Swanson was hitting like 8th or 9th in their lineup, right? He was a defensive first shortstop. But going into 23 or 2022, I mean, their lineup, you start seeing some of these other guys come through, Austin Riley and Matt Olson and stuff. And like they really pushed that lineup, like stretched it out to where like Swanson wasn't looked upon to be a massive offensive threat. And what's he do? He gives you 25 homers or something like that, a 117 WRC+. So that's kind of like what I guess I'm hoping happens for the Cubs here with him is he finally gives the Cubs his best offensive season. And if you look at 23, he had a solid year offensively, 744 OPS, right? He's only had an OPS over 800 twice in his career. So if he's a 750 OPS or higher, that's a massive win for the Cubs and for him. And so if you're talking about exceeding projections or being a better offensive hitter than what we saw last year, that's what I'm looking at. An OPS of 750 or higher, he's done it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 times. He had 744 OPS in 2023, so not far off, right? I just think that for him, not having as much pressure to be some massive offensive threat, it will be good for the team and good for him, and it doesn't put him in all these pressure situations to have to perform. And I just think the people who, as we've talked about before, the people who think that he's overrated or he's overpaid, all this, they've always looked at the offense, and it's like, I invite you to go look at his Fangraphs or Baseball Reference page, and you tell me where this guy's ever been a massive offensive threat. In 2022, going into his free agent year, when he wasn't looked upon to be that guy, that's when he had his best offensive season. They had a really good lineup that year. And so it's just, to me, is it hoping? Is it, trying to project, wish, whatever?
Maybe.
Sure, yes. But we've seen, he has done it in his career before. That's all I'm saying. So for me, a really good offensive season for Dansby Swanson in 2025 would be if he can have an OPS of 750 or higher with a WRC plus north of 110. If he does that to go with the elite defense that he has, he will not only make the All-Star team in 2025, but he will be probably looked at as a kind of a unsung hero because no one will be talking about it. Everyone will be talking about Kyle Tucker or Seiya Suzuki or Matt Shaw or PCA, whatever. Those are the names that people are talking about in the spring. No one's talking about Dansby Swanson, like we're saying, right? But if he does those two things, has an OPS of 750 or higher, a WRC plus of 110 or higher, that's what for offense, that's what I'm asking for. That's what I would love to see from him. And he can do it. He's done it in the past, and I think because he's healthy, he can certainly get back to that level. And honestly, it's not even asking for that much.
No. Yeah, Joey.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, health aside, I think part of the issue with Dansby last year was, I pulled it up before the show, he hit 155 in May. Mm-hmm. And we all remember, too, as well, we were running Master Boney out there often. Amaya and PCA were having their struggles. So I think the thing is, with that veteran leadership, you want him to be part of the solution, maybe not part of the problem of that back half of the lineup. And 2 years ago, when he drives in over 80 runs, he did it kind of in the same spot of the lineup. And it's just kind of picking up those things and kind of keeping that level of the lineup afloat, where I have high hopes and optimism that Amaya and PCA will be better. But I think something like that from Dansby, that maybe the numbers won't be different, but those intangibles can maybe be a bit of an improvement this year.
Well, the thing is, to your point, though, in May of last year, he was playing through an injury.
Right.
You know?
That's what I'm saying.
And so it's like he's got to stop trying to... How do I say this? He's got to set his pride to the side. When things aren't right...
Don't try to be Cal Ripken if you're not Cal Ripken.
Exactly. Like, if you're not
I appreciate it, but don't try to do it.
You got to sit. He undoubtedly hurt the team in May last year because he was an automatic ground out to short, it felt like, every time he came up in May last year. And he wasn't healthy. So, like, that's why I'm saying, if he's healthy, he can give you those types of numbers that I mentioned in 22 and 23 with the Braves and then the Cubs.
I just think there's a chance that a healthy Dansby Swanson could be our peak Dansby Swanson this season in a Cubs uniform. And if that happens with an offense that's starting to expand with talent, he starts to slide further down the lineup. And if you're getting a 250 batting average and 25 home runs and 85 driven in, you're going to look back and say, that is an X factor on this team that we didn't even think about. We've just sort of forgotten that he's on this team because he's not an offensive first guy. But the further he slides back into that lineup and the more other guys like PCA and Bush and whoever else, and Justin Turner in there every once in a while, that starts to expand the lineup. And you could be looking at a Dansby Swanson that a lot of people that were frustrated the first couple of years in the Cubs uniform can now look at him and say, wow, were we lucky we had Dansby Swanson. And they wouldn't be wrong about it.
Yeah. Well, I think anyone who was frustrated with Dansby Swanson in 23 is just based off recency bias at the end of the year, in which he was playing through an injury. So, again, to me, it's all about health. If this guy is healthy and giving you that elite defense, he can be as good as he was in 2022 and 2023. And we always say this about free agents that you bring in, like they're supposed to supplement the roster. To supplement the roster. You've mentioned it many times. The money that he's making in today's market isn't even that much.
No.
Right? You can make, sure.
Compared to other shortstops out there.
When you talk about offense, sure, you can certainly make a strong argument that this guy is outside the top 10 in shortstops. But when you talk about defense, this guy is right up there. And with the kind of pitching staff the Cubs have, that doesn't generate a lot of swing and miss. This guy's making defensive plays like he did on Saturday in that first inning. He makes it look so easy. It's almost like we don't even appreciate it anymore because we see it so often. And why was he able to do it? Because he's healthy. So I just think health is such a major thing for him going into this year.
As for playing through injuries, while everybody appreciates it and the team appreciates it because it's a long season, one of the guys who could potentially back him up this year, Gage Workman, is a shortstop too. He could play third, he could play short, he could play around, and he's going to Japan. Workman and Vidal Brujan going to Japan. We know that for sure. Mm-hmm. And Workman just continues to have a great spring, and I know it's spring, and we'll say that over and over and over. But people are starting to get excited about this Rule 5 draft guy that appears to be going absolutely nowhere but staying in Chicago right now and playing for the Cubs. I just saw somebody on Twitter saying they put out there, tell me your favorite player that's opened your eyes or something in spring training. And it was Gage Workman, and Rick Sutcliffe put me too, right? Like, I think Cubs fans have noticed it, and around Cubs camp, it's noticeable that he has power from the left side. It's noticeable that maybe he's going to cut down on, we hope, strikeouts this season, and he can play elite defense. That's another guy that offensively could be fitting into this team that we just don't know exactly what to expect, but there's certainly reason for hope and reason for some expectations and optimism going into the season.
Yeah, he had 2 more hits yesterday.
He keeps going.
And he's hitting over 400 in the spring at an OPS over 1,200. Like, it's a small sample size. I've said this a lot, but the defense, I think, is the bare minimum that I'm going to have expectations from. He showed enough with the glove that I'm like, okay, this guy can easily be a defensive replacement at some position. If the Cubs, and I'm not saying that they feel this way. I'm not saying that they feel this way at all. But if the Cubs aren't that high on Matt Shaw playing third base, would it surprise you if you see some late game defensive replacements of Gage Workman at third base for Matt Shaw?
No. No, it wouldn't.
I'm not saying that I'm calling for it. I'm just saying that I personally have not bought in that the Cubs fully believe that Matt Shaw is going to be playing third base for the next 10 years.
Well, we also don't even – I mean, he looked good with Team USA, and he's had fine moments this spring in the limited time.
He made all the routine plays
as far as going to Japan, we still don't know at the time of this live broadcast.
Right.
Now, we'll probably know by this time tomorrow whether or not Shaw is going. But even if he doesn't go to Japan, they can still get that. Let's say Shaw goes on to become Rookie of the Year, and he doesn't go to Japan. As long as he's on that opening day roster stateside, they still would get the extra draft pick. And it doesn't have – the Japan games basically don't count in that sense. So, I don't know. I think I'll still be surprised if he's on there.
Workman has been admittedly very exciting to watch. And I genuinely hope it is a massive scouting win for the Cubs to get it to get a guy in the Rule 5 draft. Like, it was the last time the Cubs did something like that. Hector Rondon.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, Hector Rondon was a Rule 5 pick.
Yeah,
but like,
that might be it.
I don't remember the last time the Cubs pulled out a massive win in the Rule 5 draft. I'm not trying to get too far ahead.
Was Wisdom a Rule 5-er? I don't know if that's a massive win.
They signed him.
They just signed him?
They just signed him, yes. They signed him, DFA'd him, and then re-signed him again.
Hey, Joey, we got a super chat, by the way.
I'm ready when you are. Are you ready for it?
Yeah. Are those by Toyota now?
I believe so.
Toyota Super Chat?
Toyota Super Chat.
Toyota Super Chat. Thank you. Cubs start the season in 8 days. Charles Tillman Enthusiast says, Chat Dio Orebigo. I don't even know how to say the guy's name.
Means.
The Bears signed a guy.
Oh, okay.
How do you say it?
I believe it's Odiengbo.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
They still want to talk Bears while we're talking Cubs.
But at least he said Cubs season starts in 8 days. Shout out to you. Thanks for the super chat. Anyway, Workman, the offense, we'll see. He hit a homer on Thursday. Hit a homer on Thursday, but it's the 9th inning, and it's like all minor league players in there, right? And let's just be honest about it. Like, he's never faced major league pitching in a major league baseball game. So I feel like we have to set our expectations pretty low. I mean, I think when we talked about his projections on Fangraphs last week,
Tater.
Yeah, those are high.
Yeah. I like
that. In my opinion. So I would love to sit here and talk about how it's a massive developmental scouting win for the Cubs, no doubt. But I'm really forcing myself to just expect really good defense, and in matchup-based situations can be a really solid hitter. And at the very least, he could be a really good platoon with Shaw because he's a lefty, Shaw's a righty, But I don't know. I really don't know.
Corey with a good one in the live YouTube chat. Jody Davis was a Rule 5 pick in 1980 from the Cardinals. Jody.
Yeah, I was going to say just really quick, Cody nailed it with the 2012 Hector Rondon. Other notables from the past, Josh Hamilton in 2006, obviously never played for the Cubs, but was a Rule 5 selection by the Cubs. Ramon Tatis, 1996. Rodney Myers, 1995. Tanyan Sturtz, 1994, and then Jody Davis.
Jody.
Well, we really messed up with Josh Hamilton.
Jody Davis was the number one. Yeah.
We had our shot.
We had our shot at Josh Hamilton. I mean, I know Josh Hamilton had all the off-the-field stuff,
Sure.
but, like,
he was
But him in between D. Lee
so
and Aramis
good.
Ramirez?
Yeah.
would have been all
that
right.
guy was a main piece of a Rangers team that went to a World Series.
Yeah.
I don't
would
know.
have taken it.
Yeah.
So Moises Ballesteros was another guy that was sent back with Horton to camp, and I think it's interesting to try and figure out where he fits into this, right? Lots of people, especially people that watch the minor leagues very closely, will say, this guy's the best bat in the system.
I'm one of those people.
Right, like he's the best bat in the system. It's a major league bat right now. The question is, where do you play the guy?
Yeah.
How do you? If you don't have somewhere to play him, you want to make sure that he's continuing to develop, because getting him on the Cubs means having a spot to play him. If Seiya's your DH,
Yeah.
right? So so now you're saying, is he a catcher? We still don't have that answer, and I don't know if we know what the Cubs think about that. Obviously, there needs to be improvement for him to be a catcher, but let's say, knock on wood, something happens to Kelly or Amaya. Is Ballesteros the guy they call up to be the backup catcher?
I don't think so.
Or is it somebody else? Is it McGuire or somebody else that's been in the system and that is more of a veteran?
I think it depends on what time of the season. Like if it's mid-season and he's been catching in AAA, then okay. But I think if Kelly or Amaya get hurt in April, we're going to see Reese McGuire.
I think the most likely scenario for getting Ballesteros to the big leagues, the first time he'll come to the majors and impact the Cubs, will likely be some sort of, knock on wood, Seiya nick up. Either Seiya or Tucker will get banged up enough that they'll say, we have to go down and get another bat. Seiya would go back to right field if it's Tucker. Vice versa, if it's Seiya, they would just put Ballesteros and or Workman right on into that DH for a while and make that work. That's just a guess.
Yeah, no,
instead of a catcher injury, I think the catcher injury still could have other avenues.
I certainly think that is the more likelihood of us seeing Ballesteros. It's in a DH role, and maybe he'll get an opportunity to catch later in the year. If it's early in the season, especially if it's early in the season, I would be surprised if we saw Ballesteros catching for the Chicago Cubs, because there's just so much that goes into it, knowing the pitchers and all these things. You know, he's played with some of the regulars this spring for sure, but it's very hard to tell how the Cubs feel about him as a catcher. But he's been doing it this spring. He caught yesterday as well when he came into the game. So, you know, the bat sure plays though. He had it was caught for an out yesterday, but he had an opposite field like laser that it's just like you watch him swing the bat and it gets you dreaming. It gets you thinking about Kyle Schwarber. That's how I feel, at least when I see this guy in the batter's box. The aura, the presence he has in the batter's box, I feel like that is Kyle Schwarber at the plate, and I'm dreaming about 40 bombs one day. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, like if he has that kind of power, but the swing and everything, it's fun. It really does make me get real delusional about him, but we'll see. But I do think we will see him at some point. I just think it's more likely to be in a DH role, maybe emergency first base. Like, what if Turner and Bush get hurt somehow, some way?
Can't Workman play first?
He could, but I think if
Turner could, Workman could.
If Bush and Turner get hurt,
right.
I think they would go to that level and bring it up by Ballesteros.
Yeah, well, they would be desperate at that point. Do we have an update yet on Garrett Cole? Did the Yankees decide what? I mean, I know he had the imaging done.
Yeah, he's out with Tommy John.
Out with Tommy John for sure.
They're getting a second opinion, but like that's what it's.
Don't you assume the Yankees are going to get in on Alcantara now, Sandy Alcantara?
Oh yeah,
right. Isn't that where they're going to go?
Yeah, because
I was dreaming last week of this is what I was thinking with Ballesteros. If he doesn't have a position, but he is this major league bat right now, so that's not that I want to give him up. But if I'm getting Alcantara back, that's a different story. I'm dreaming of a big pitcher coming in, and you have a guy who's definitely major league ready that attracts somebody, and it might hurt someday, but he doesn't have a spot necessarily yet on this team. So that's the type of guy, just like Gleyber Torres when they dealt him. They knew he was going to be good, but they also knew that he didn't necessarily have a spot yet on the team. So Mo Baller, could he potentially be a guy that gets moved in a package, especially since Owen Casey's, we don't know.
Well, no, I saw our guy Rich Beasterfield over the weekend get some pictures of him taking live BP.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and he was doing some running the day before that too.
But I think Mo Baller's a guy that another team, that could be the third outcome to happen this season, is if possibly he gets jumped in a deal because he is a major league ready bat. Could that be one of the pieces the Cubs use to go get whatever they might be lacking later in the season? It looks like I bet you Harold Reynolds is right now. Now that the Yankees have a big opening,
well, I'll say
I'll
agree with what Sydney's saying in the chat. They said that I don't know if the Yankees have the prospect capital to do that, and I agree. They're like bottom 10 in prospect capital or farm systems right now. And listen, unless the Marlins are just trying to unload this guy, which would make absolutely no sense. It's not like the guy.
No,
he's
they'll
making
get a bidding war for him.
They're making he's making like $17 million for the talent that he has. Like, that is a massive steal. So I don't think it would be something like a Giancarlo Stanton where they're just trying to unload some contract. Like, they probably will try to hold on to him as long as they can and get into a bidding war with multiple teams. And I really don't know what the Yankees are going to do because, they don't have a really good farm system right now.
Do they have major leaguers that the Marlins would be interested in?
Why would the Marlins be interested? Yeah, okay. Like,
young major leaguer.
Jason Dominguez? Like, they're a very
They're going to be making
team.
the call. That's all I know. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It might not match up, but you know that they're going to be searching for that player. Whether it's Cease or...
I feel like the Yankees will be part of the conversation because they're the Yankees.
Yeah.
But legitimately, if the Marlins care about getting the best return, Sandy Alcantara is not going to be a Yankee.
He's going to be a Cub.
He's going to be anyone but a Yankee.
Cody, you brought up the point of if Bush and Tucker were to go down and they had a hole at first base, the chat blew up with Anthony Rizzo. Just want to get your take on that. The break glass situation. I mean, honestly, I'll ask you guys honestly. Would you rather turn to Ballesteros or would you do a stopgap like Anthony Rizzo?
That's a situation that when we talked about Rizzo, like a week or two ago, whenever the story that Ken Rosenthal came out. I think that's the scenario I mentioned where Rizzo would get signed. I didn't say the Cubs. I was just saying, like, if a team experiences multiple injuries at first base and they need someone, they could call Rizzo up.
But he still won't come for the league minimum.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to still pay. I don't even think for the Cubs he's taking the league minimum. So that's still a factor to consider.
What is it? Is it something that I would do? Like, I think it at least opens up the opportunity. But the thing is that Say this happens in like June and he still hasn't signed with a team. How, like, are you just going to insert him to your lineup the next day? Like, I feel like this guy would have to go to Iowa, get some at-bats in or something. He hasn't faced live pitching in months. He didn't do a spring training, any of that. Like, I don't even know what I would expect there. So I do think optics do matter and stuff like that. And, maybe Jonathan Long is another guy the Cubs like. It depends on where the Cubs are in the season. If they're way ahead in the standings, if they're running away with the division and somehow Turner and Michael Busch are hurt, I think that gives them some flexibility to be able to maybe sign Rizzo, let him get 20 to 30 at-bats in AAA, and then he can slot in. Maybe
Rizzo's mighty return.
You figure it out before, like, until then. That's the only way. I don't see them doing it in the heat of a division race or anything. I think they would have to be running away with the division.
Is Lance Lynn more likely?
Yes. Unfortunately.
Yuck.
Yeah. That's how I feel too. Like, I don't really care. It's like cool, like another veteran pitcher, I think I'd rather have Kyle Gibson than Lance Lynn, but it's only because, like, I think of Lance Lynn and he just played for, like, teams that I didn't like my entire life. So,
did you see? There was an article in The Athletic from friend of the show, Katie Wu. She talked to one Yadier Molina.
Who?
Yadier Molina. And this was the quote on managing. If we decide as a family, if I have a chance to manage and I can manage anywhere, I'd manage the Chicago Cubs if they want.
I did not see this.
Cody, I
off.
saved it for the end because I know we only have about 3 minutes left in the show.
How
do you feel about Yadier Molina saying he wants to manage so badly that he'd even manage the Cubs. Is the way I take it is, I want to manage the Cubs. That's not what he's saying. He's saying
he would.
I'd so desperately want to manage, I'd even manage the Cubs. That's the way I'm taking that.
Would he manage the CHGO softball team?
Oh,
well, we are champions.
We are champions.
We are champions.
We can go with
missing a lot of players from last year, but we are the defending champions.
My reaction to Yadier Molina saying that he would manage the Cubs. Okay, whatever. Craig Counsell's the manager, so I think that's more of a ploy of like the Cardinals need to move on from Marmol and hire him.
Was he talking about the South Bend Cubs?
No,
I think we're pretty happy with our manager there too.
I can't believe that he's like quoted that like. Well,
he was using the Cubs.
Yeah.
As a lack of respect is what he was trying to think of.
Hell freezing over.
Hell will
I would
freeze
do
over,
whatever.
But I'd even do that.
It's a total shot.
I'd eat poop out of a garbage can is basically what he's saying. That's how bad I want to manage. I think that's pretty much what he's calling the Cubs.
I think it's more of a shot at the Cardinals because everyone has been calling for Ollie Marmol's name for the last 2 years in St. Louis. And he's like a legend in that city. And he's probably thinking he can use that to leverage himself into a job of some sorts. And so he's saying, I want to manage so bad, I'd go manage the Cubs. Like, I'm not surprised he says something like that. He's a legend in St. Louis. I don't think it's a shot at the Cubs. I think it's a shot at the Cardinals.
How do you think they're taking that in St. Louis? That's worse than Terrio. That's worse than Terrio saying he was on the right side of the...
That's what I'm saying. Like, it feels like it's more of a shot at the Cardinals than it is the Cubs. Like, if he's looking, if you want to say, oh, he's disrespecting the Cubs, it's like, okay, that's like when Chris Bryant said that St. Louis is boring. I don't know. Like,
that's factual, though. One's opinion, one is factual. It is boring.
The point is that I think that it's definitely more of a slight at the Cardinals than it is anything, and which is crazy because he's like the Dwight Schrute of the front office in St. Louis right now.
Please hit the like button before you leave the show today. So you would be okay if Yadier Molina someday down the road became the manager of the Cubs, or you would disown the Cubs?
I wouldn't disown the Cubs. I don't even know what I would do. It would be a very weird feeling.
He'd probably have Jim Edmonds on his.
It's very much like Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback question. Like, how could you feel good about that, but you want to root for your team?
But it's also like kind of the same with Craig Counsell. I mean, he was with the Brewers for a long time and beat the Cubs a bunch. I think the optics matter here. Like if he goes and manages somewhere and he's good at it.
Yeah.
And he's beating the Cubs, and for some reason the Cubs aren't winning with Craig Counsell, and you want to go down this path again of bringing in a guy that basically beats you a bunch of times, then I guess like it would be something that fans would get on board for. But I don't think any other scenario it's something that people would ever do.
I was just trying to see if you were going to be irrationally angry about it. It's not a big deal. I've heard Ozzie Guillen say many times he would manage the Cubs, and Ozzie hates Wrigley Field and everything about it. So
I'm not irrationally angry.
It's a manager's job.
I'm not irrationally angry about it. I think it's funny. I think he's throwing shots at the Cardinals for not hiring him to be a manager.
Good, because St. Louis is boring. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by Toyota. We're back at 1:30 with a live show again on Tuesday. Hope you enjoy the nice warm weather if you're in Chicago. Until then, thanks for watching and fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.